All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of Saber Sims DFS office hours. It is Tuesday, April 25th of 2023 here. Looks like we have a 9-game MLB main slate on tap for later today, this afternoon. Looks like we also have a 3-game NBA playoff slate. Should be fun. Playoffs have been very, very entertaining so far. And we also have a 3-game NHL playoff slate going on as well. So it should be a fun day of DFS. A lot of DFS action coming at you today. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew, one of the coaches over here at Saber Sims, the show where we go over how to use the Saber Sim app, answer any and all DFS related questions that come in live in the YouTube chat or in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord, there's a link in the description below. And if you're not joined up with Saber Sim, we do this show Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, to get users' questions answered. If you want to check us out, come and get your questions answered. There's a link to a 7-day, no strings attached free trial. But that being said, going to get the app pulled up here. Looks like we have one question in the Discord. So I will. Okay, actually, no, we have 2 questions. So 2 questions in the Discord. Don't think these are going to take super long here. Should bust right through these. So if anybody has any questions, now is a great time to get those in as always. All right. So F Primo has a question. Said, is there a only in stack option for baseball yet? If not, what is the best way to go about this? So good question here. Let's go over to baseball. This is one that we talk about on like a stat level for like hitters with a low home run expectation, but you can do this on an individual batter level as well. There are just certain players that that you're not grouping them by any type of statistical basis here. You're just kind of off the cuff, like, hey, I have like a group of guys that I know I don't want to play unless I use them in a stack. Maybe you're doing like something like order, right? Maybe you're saying, hey, don't give me like a one-off 9-hitter. If I'm going to have a 9-hitter in my pool, maybe, or in my lineup, make sure that they're in a stack, right? So I could see something like that. So what I would do, I would go to lineup rules, add new rule. I would go to group, and I don't know if you can do order by automatic. I'm actually interested in that. Let's see, is order here? So order is not. So you would have to click these guys in. So let's say we wanted to do that order version, right? So what I would say is I would do an if-then rule. So you change this use to if here. So then say if at least one, and then we're going to group by team. Or actually, no, I'm going to do a manual rule here. So if you want to do the order, we got to do manual, but you can still use the if then. So then what I'm going to say is if at least one, and I'm going to check in. Ooh, man, we can't group by team here. Interesting. Okay. So what you would have to do is you would have to do this on a team by team level for your order guys. So let's shrink this sample down a little bit. So let's say that maybe you know that you don't want to play the 7, 8, 9 hitters from a certain team as one-offs. You only want to play them if they're in a stack. So then what I would do is I would go filter by this team. So just use a little filter icon. I'm going to use the Angels for this example. And I'm going to say if at least one, and I'm going to put the 7, 8, 9 hitters in here in this primary players. And then I'm going to say use at least 2 from the secondary players. And then I'm just going to check in the entire lineup here. So then what this is going to say is, hey, if I use these 7, 8, 9 hitters, make sure that they're at least in a 3 stack of the entire team here. And then that would be the rule like for the Angels, but you would have to do that like manually on a team by team basis for order here. The other rule that we talk about regularly, which I would highly recommend figuring out a way to do this that gets you really close to what you want, is this if then rule. This is an automatic type where you are using a stat requirement. So one that we use often here is as a demo is if at least one player from a team who has a home run expectation of less than 0.12, then use at least 2 players from the same team. So what you're saying is like, hey, if a guy has a 0.12 home or less than a 0.12 home run expectation, then put him in a stack with other players on his team. So you don't have to use this version. You could use projection. We have a lot of different options here. We have projections, ownership value, singles, doubles, triples, home runs, stolen bases, runs, RBIs. We have pitcher stats, percentiles. If you want to use like a percentile, whatever it may be, you could use all of these different versions here. But just a couple different ways for different things that you might trying to accomplish there. But I gotta get rid of all these rules. All right. Next question here from J. Sams Jr. Let's get this one in here. Question says, I have a question. When you lower sim diversity, does it give you players that are more consistent in the fantasy scoring for MLB and also NBA? Also for NBA, are the blocks and steals factored into a player's fantasy projection? Keep up the great work. Saber Sim rocks. Awesome. Thanks for the kind words, Jade Sams Jr. Gonna hit these one at a time. Gonna talk about this MLB question first, and then we will jump over to NBA and talk about NBA. But says basically, what is happening when you lower the sim diversity slider? I think that's a really good question and always worth refreshing here. So basically, what is happening? So you can think of sim diversity as a spectrum, right? At 0 sim diversity, what is happening is that we are looking at the player's mean projection, and we are using that projection when we go to build your lineups. So this, I'm going to use Ohtani, for example, here. Ohtani has this wide range of outcomes where his two most common outcomes are less than 5 points about 40% of the time here. And then he has this big tail to the right where, sometimes he's scoring like over 30 points, high 20s, probably 1-2 home run game or something like that, right? But those outcomes only occur a small percentage of the time. And then, so at sim diversity 0, we're taking the mean score across all of our sims in our database for this individual player, and we're doing that for every single player. At sim diversity 10, what we are doing is we are taking a slate, a single instance of a slate occurring. So what we are doing is we are going and taking one game sim from each game on the slate, and then that is creating one single slate simulation. And then whatever the players score in that one sim is now their projection that we use when we go to analyze building your lineups. And then we build you a lineup, and then that is one lineup, and then we would do that process however many times, 500 times, 1,500 times, whatever that may be. And then everything kind of in between is either like a more or less, I would say. So basically, like the lower your sim diversity goes, the bigger the bucket of sims that we're using. So it's very I guess like variant is probably like the right term here. You don't know how Ronald Acuna is going to do if we take 10 sims out of 5,000. Like he could have 10 really bad sims and not get in any of your lineups. He could have, a couple good sims, a couple bad sims. He could have, just a lot of sims where he just like smashes the slate, and you're so you're not really sure, right? It's a little more like variant, a little more he could have like these really huge games, right? Like let's say you take 3 sims, right? I'm just making these numbers up. And then in one of those sims, he gets 30 points. So now, even if he goes 0-0, he's averaging 10 points, which is just about his mean anyways. But maybe he doesn't score 0 in one of those other 2 games. So by doing it that way, by taking these small samples, sometimes you're going to get sims where the player does really good, sometimes where the player does really bad, sometimes where the player is very close to their average here. But as you increase that sample that you're pulling from the sim database, when you are lowering sim diversity, this player is going to get closer and closer to their mean projection that you see in the app here. So it's like basically like the law of large numbers. The bigger your sample size, the closer to the theoretical probability you arrive at, you achieve. So that's kind of what's happening here. So what I would say is that when we say, oh, you want to build for more upside, you should increase your sim diversity. What we're saying is like, hey, be comfortable with higher variance and take these smaller buckets where a player who might not be the most obvious play from a mean projection standpoint can have a really good sample, and that would lead to him having a really good in-life game or a really good chance of having a real game when this game actually plays out one single time. And that is how we help you find high upside players that might not be the most obvious because their mean projection is not the highest to start with, right? So that is why we like associate increasing sim diversity with higher upside lineups, lineups that are kind of further away from like the chalkiest, most common constructions here. But then as you lower sim diversity, you're going to get closer to those chalkier type plays, those plays that just grade out really well on a projected score basis. Let me know if you need any more clarification there, J. Sams Jr., but really good question. Happy to talk about that one. All right, jumping over to the YouTube chat. 2 questions here. If anybody has any more questions, now is a great time to drop those in the chat. All right, Brian said, I have had success with smaller MME contests on Yahoo. Thoughts on specializing in low stakes MME contests in 1K to 10K range on DK? I'm going to wait for the smaller contests to open up in the lobby. Okay, so really good question here. One thing that I do want to point out here, this is something that I think that happens more during basketball season. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I move on, I missed the second part of this question from J. Sams Jr. talking about NBA. So sim diversity works the same way across all sports here. And the last part of this question, are blocks and steals factored into players' fantasy point projections? Yes. So we understand what stats are being graded or scored for by the sites, right? So if DraftKings values a steal and a block at 2 points each, but FanDuel values them at 3 points each, all of that is being captured in the Sims. And if you have the ability to see the detailed stat projections on the home screen, which is available on the SaberSim Pro plan, you'll be able to see the steal and block categories here. And then these are the average steals and blocks that these players get in a game across all of our Sims for their game. So you can see that detailed stats here in the app as well. But yes, all of that is being accounted for in the fantasy point projection. All right, getting back to Ryan's question. So couple things here. One thing that I know can happen, like let's say that you're playing like the $4.20 max, right? Usually that contest has a prize pool above $25,000. So the DraftKings guidelines for I don't know if it's called fair play or what it is, but basically players with I think $1 million or more in lifetime earnings cannot enter contests under $3, and they cannot enter contests under $5 where the prize pool is below $25,000. So that $4.20 max below the $5 threshold, but it is over the prize pool threshold. So all users have access to that contest. If those contests fill pretty early, DraftKings will release a second smaller contest of the same entry limit and entry size as far as like how many entries that you can put into the contest, but it will be smaller. And so usually that prize pool is underneath that 25K limit. So the best players are not even seeing that second contest open. And I think that second contest is a really good contest to play if you are hawking the lobby, checking, within an hour before lock to see if they opened up a second contest or not. I think that is a great idea. So I think that there's something to say about specializing in some of these different type of contests or different, not the most popular sites, right? I think like the DFS contest site hierarchy is like DK and then FanDuel and then Yahoo and then, got to throw them in there. Owner's Box now, right? I think Owner's Box is great. If you guys aren't playing on Owner's Box, don't know what Owner's Box is, we have a promo page in the description of this video. The contests have been overlaying a lot. Contests are pretty soft. Haven't seen a ton of the sharpest users that you see over on these other sites playing in those contests. SaberSim was the first major optimizer to support Owner's Box. You can earn free SaberSim credit. So along with like the Owner's Bucks that you get as like rake back from the site directly, you also can earn free months of SaberSim, and that is unlimited. You can earn as many free months, years as you want for as much money as you can get down. If you use promo code SABER, we track that for you. And then they also have a $500 deposit bonus. But I think that it's a great idea to play on Owner's Box, play on Yahoo, and then just focus on this under $3 stuff on DK and FanDuel. I think that you can actually get a lot of money down. And if you calculate it, you could easily get like in the 1 to 2K range, especially if you're playing all these alternate slates, the turbos, the nights, the showdowns, play all the satellites. Those give you access to some of those tougher contests, but hopefully if you do good in the satellites at a decreased entry fee, right? So maybe you're playing, I think that FanDuel does this a lot, where they'll run satellites for like their flagship GPP, which I don't see DK do that as much as FanDuel does. But FanDuel will just like have these once in a while like larger than usual flagship GPP. So they'll run like $9 satellites to an MLB flagship one day, and you could those contests overlay a lot as well. So maybe instead of paying 9 times 150, you're paying $6 times 150 because you won all 150 of your entries off of satellites, and so you got in for 1/3 of the contest entry fee if you add up all the money you spent on satellites versus how much it took you to accumulate that many tickets. So I think there's a lot of ways to like squeak out some edge. I think that you're thinking about it the right way. I would say just keep grinding it out, finding those edges and taking advantage of them where you can. All right, Liam has a question. Liam said, if uploading my own custom projections and ownership for a sport we don't sim, will the lineup builder take into account Saber score correctly? Okay, good question here. So let's go. Let's see. Where can we go? Maybe soccer. I think soccer's probably the best one here. Really quickly, just to get some clarification, ET said, hey dudes, do you have any videos focused on A/B testing? Could you let me know what you mean by A/B testing? That would be great. Like what exactly is that an acronym for? If you clarify that, I will jump back to it once we get through Liam's question. Okay. So we have this soccer slate here. I think that this is a great example here. So I'm just going to use these salaries as just to get some projections in here. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to run a build, and then I'm going to kind of talk about this in the post build, kind of show you guys what is going on here, what factors are being used in SaberScore and which factors are not. So we're in the post build now. Our sorting metric is going to go automatically here. So if we look at this formula for SaberScore, what we're going to see is it is going to be what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to have 3 components: your sum projection of your lineup, the lineup's percentile, and then the lineup's average adjusted ownership here. So because we don't have sims, we're not going to have this percentile one. So this is essentially just going to be 0. We're going to have the sum projection here, which is going to be shown at the bottom of the lineup, which is just the accumulation of all the players via your custom projections here. And then the last part is that if you upload custom ownership to a sport that we do not have sims for, basically the custom ownership is just going to be the average adjusted ownership. So the average adjusted ownership is, an internal metric that we created to help us identify which players are highly variant and which players are not. Since we don't have sims, we can't use the adjusted ownership, or it's not going to be available here in the app. So what will happen is we will just 1-for-1 your ownership. So your ownership will basically be the adjusted ownership here. So these will be 1-for-1 if you upload your custom ownership, and then that is what we will use as part of this Saber score formula. So you'll have the sum projection, you'll have the ownership, you just will not have the lineup percentiles. So that is how it works for sports that we do not have sims for. Okay, getting back to this other question, said lots of optimizing talk. Think you would do well to connect with like the business school guys who may be watching. I mean, like running multiple tranches with different assumptions. I like running a 20 versus 20 with various priors. So test the salary restriction sum, test the stacking restrictions sum, etc. Really quickly, Liam said, thanks. Yeah, no. So, I mean, what I could say is that, we do a lot of back testing. We do a lot of contest sims behind the scenes here. That's not my particular forte here. I more know the rough outline, the sketch of it. I'm not hands in the dirt in that part of the company. If you're looking for more information as to what really goes into all of our back testing and contest sims, what I would do is, I'm sure you'll find this pretty enjoyable. You go over to podcasts, and then we have this Behind the Sims podcast here. So this is basically conversations about different projects that we've worked on, with specifically usually involves our models team. So that is Eric and Will, as well as Matt, who is the founder of SaberSim, and Jordan is in there, kind of what I don't, for lack of a better term, like translating, asking questions to bring it down to like a more basic understanding type of level. So we did a contest selection one, which is ultimately how we came up with the DFS profit plan. And then we did this contest simulation series, where this is basically how we back tested our sliders for MLB season last season and made adjustments to that and optimized that. So a lot of content here, but really good stuff if that is your particular forte. Said, oh crap, sorry man, thought it was that show. Just click the live. Oh, no worries, man. Happy to clarify that for you. But yeah, give this a shot, check it out, and if you're interested in questions or feedback or anything like that, join the Discord, and we have a Behind the Sims channel, and you could ask questions in there about if you have any questions about things that we did in some of that back testing. All right, AK said, really quickly, you're gonna get SaberSim pulled back up. And AK said, what are some quick key things to look at when observing value and leverage if it is close to lock and some late changes have occurred without much time to research? I think this is a very good question. More of our NBA type question. I think that this is like a situation that comes up in NBA a lot. But I think first and foremost, right, you got to remember that, let's say news breaks really close to slate lock, you're in a crunch for time, you're starting to feel the stress come down upon you, like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to go through my normal process, whatever, I got to make adjustments on the fly. Take a breath, and just remember that every single player in your contest is dealing with this exact scenario. Like, chances are, nobody has the insider information that came out 20 minutes ago that, hey, this guy's probably going to sit, and then it doesn't get released to the media until 20 minutes later. Basically, almost nobody has that information, right? We're all following like Underdog NBA and waiting for these alerts on Twitter and following beat reporters and things like that, right? So if you're in a crunch for time, it's okay. Everybody's dealing with the same exact situation. I think what you should do is, if you had any particular prior like thoughts or something about a certain situation, and this news just blows it out of the water, just completely changes the dynamics of the team, of the slate, probably going to happen in basketball. What I would do is I would wait for the newest sim to run. and you could follow along in the NBA lineup alerts channel in the Discord. And I would just trust the sim. We're going to be able to take in that information quickly, adjust and redistribute minutes, usage, fantasy points, etc. Probably like extremely fast within minutes here. And in a situation like that where I'm crunched for time, I know that I'm not going to be able to add that much value. So I'm just going to trust the sim in that particular scenario. But that doesn't mean that you can't like limit your exposure to a situation. So like let's say that I don't know, Jokic gets ruled out, 5 minutes to game time here. Next sim runs, right? And then you're just getting, I don't know, like 100% exposure to all these Denver guys. It's okay to dial that back a little bit. That is like probably a spot where, it makes sense intuitively why you would want to do that. Maybe not all the players in your contest are going to be swapping and capturing that news. But with SaberSim, you're able to do that really quickly, run your late swap, get those uploaded to the site. So from like a EV standpoint, probably good to like just jam them in. But if that makes you uncomfortable, I think it's okay to limit your exposure to them. But you really got to handle it on like a just on a particular situation by situation basis here. There's no perfect guidelines like, hey, when late news breaks, always have 2x of the next starter or something like that. Like that's just probably bad advice if anybody were to give that to you. So I'd be very cautious if you heard something along those lines. But I think that in general, the builder is really good. We have a lot of data, and we've probably seen a situation like that arise in the past, and we can figure out what everybody's redistributed minutes, usage, etc. should be. So I'd say trust the sim if you're in a crunch. All right, Teflon said, is there a filter or lineup rule that can filter so that lineups have no more than 2 non-starters? I know that may be impossible, but just thought I would ask for NBA. Okay. What can you do here? So we were looking at these group rules earlier, and there was a status requirement, but I don't know what this is. Status is okay. So what you can do is, and you said no more than 2 non-starters. So then what I would do is I would do a group automatic rule. I would say use no more than 2. I would leave group by unchecked. And then I would add this stat requirement that says status is or status is not confirmed. So basically what happens is that when the lineups come out, when the lineups get confirmed, we're going to put check marks in these boxes for the starters. And then for the non-starters, we're just going to leave their status box unchecked. So Atlanta will get like a check mark, probably going to be like Trae Young, Bogdanovich, Clint Capella, Hunter, and Collins here. So they will all get a green check mark here. But then like Bey, Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, they'll still be projected, but they won't have a check mark. So basically, the players with check marks are considered confirmed, and the players without check marks are considered not confirmed, but they are not out. They are available, I guess is the right term here. So then what I would do is I would do this group automatic rule, say use no more than 2. And then I would do stat requirement of status is not confirmed. And then what you could do is you could save this as a manual rule here and then just go in and see what it's doing. So what it's going to do is it's going to go and find all the players whose status is not confirmed and then put them in a group rule. One thing on this is that at this point in the day, nobody is confirmed. But what's going to happen is if you save this as an automatic rule, which I would make sure that you do, as statuses change, this rule will automatically update. So we saw that we had 61 players in this rule. As Atlanta gets confirmed, as Boston gets confirmed, that's going to be 10 players that get confirmed. We're going to remove those 10 players from this rule and then shrink that down. And then as the night goes on, that is going to continue to shrink here. So I would say that it is a little tricky because the starters are not going to be confirmed for these other teams yet. So this would make sense if you had all of the lineups at lock. So I think that probably the better thing to do here is to do just like a group manual rule and then say use no more than. And if this is like for the NBA playoffs, I think it's pretty easy to just say, okay, you know, these 5 guys are probably going to start, and then just check in these other guys and then just go through the 6 teams. So then, you know, I'm just going to check in who I am predicting to not start. So for Boston, probably Tatum, Brown, Smart, Horford, White, I guess, maybe. And then I'm going to check in Brogdon, Williams, and then probably that's it, like for that team. So pretty easy to just swift through here, check these guys in since it's only a few games at this point in the season. And then you will have a group manual rule where it says use no more than 2 from this select group of players. So as long as you have an idea of who are the starters and who is not, you can create this group manual rule and then have that for you before the slate starts, before all the lineups are confirmed, and build your lineups using that rule. So that is how I would do it. All right. AK said, it works best for Showdown because otherwise main slates would be slamming all the first game into the Sims, wouldn't it? Yeah, I think that's like kind of what we were talking about with that status rule, is that not that it would slam those guys, but it would basically say you could basically use anybody from these later games because they're all not confirmed. So they're all a part of that group rule. So it kind of like defeats the purpose unless you're late swapping every single time. But I don't think it's like super necessary to late swap every single game time, especially in the playoffs, because usually the news for these teams is already out. We're not getting a lot of late breaking news. We kind of know who's in and who's out and who's expected to play, etc. So it makes more sense to me for something like baseball, but obviously you don't care about non-confirmed players. In baseball, we're not rostering pinch hitters. Teflon said, perfect. I appreciate that. Yeah, I know that last group manual will do, and showdowns, I will do that. I will limit it. Right on. Glad you were able to get the answer you were looking for. Happy to help you on that front. But all right, everybody, I think we are all set for today. Caught up with all questions in the Discord and the YouTube chat. We'll be right back here tomorrow, Wednesday, for our next show. If anybody has any questions, building lineups throughout the day, drop them in the office hours channel. Let them sit there. That gets us a steady queue of questions to get started with at the beginning of tomorrow's show. But until then, good luck in your contest. Take care. I will see you. Bye.